Welcome to Unscripted, where every guest has a story. Every conversation begins with curiosity. Every journey deserves to be. Around here, we don't just talk about careers, companies, or headlines. We believe every person has a story, and behind every success is a journey most people never get to hear. Tonight is one of those conversations. My guest has built communities, hosted countless conversations, someone thousands of people recognize online. The titles don't tell you who someone is. What stood out to me wasn't the follower count or the projects. It was the person behind them. Someone whose story began in the back of an ambulance. Someone parents prayed over him before he ever spoke his first word, believing he would one day impact thousands of lives. Whether you believe in destiny, faith, or simply showing up every single day, his journey reminds us that the greatest influence often comes from people who never set out, simply chose to serve others. Tonight, we're going beyond timelines, beyond spaces, and beyond Web3. We're talking about purpose, faith, identity, and the weight of leadership, and what it really means to leave people better than you found them. So, everyone, please help me welcome Peanut. Wait, where? There we go. Technical difficulties. Peanut.
All good.
How are you?
I love it. I'm doing great. That intro, that was probably one of the best intros I've ever heard. That was absolutely wonderful. You got me choked up over here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, what I want to start is with your story because I think you have a great story. And I think one of the reasons why so many people connect with you isn't because of the projects that you've led or the spaces that you've hosted. It's because people can tell there's something driving you. Story didn't just begin here in Web3 with NFTs, social media. It began in the back of an ambulance where your parents held you and prayed over you, believing your life would be one day impact thousands of people. And whether someone believes in faith or fate, that's a powerful beginning for anyone. So when you think about that story today, has your understanding of it changed as you've gone older? Or do you see it as a defining moment in your life or as a reminder of the responsibility that you've been entrusted with?
Yeah, what a great question. Well, so part of it too, funny enough, to set the record straight a little bit more. You're right with majority of the details, but funny enough, it was my dad who had actually front ran us to the hospital. We didn't we didn't make it to the hospital. So I was in the ambulance on the side of a county road, and he was trying to, beat us there or meet us there. Well, it was just my mom in the back of an ambulance with me. So he got to the hospital and he was like, "Where's my wife? Where's my son?" And they're like, "Well, they didn't make it yet." So that's where like the plot gets a little interesting there. But to your question, I mean, I think it was a defining moment for me in the sense of I was I was very persistent. I was wanting to come out. I couldn't wait to get to the hospital, which is funny because at a very early age I was so focused on kind of the next thing. I had a really
Yeah.
tough time being present in the moment. So for me, it's like, I couldn't I don't know. Part of it's like I couldn't just be present in the moment. I wanted to kind of front run the situation with the hospital, and I just wanted to come out. But definitive in terms of being independent, as much as I can, being stubborn, being resilient. I think that has certainly been definitive or defining part of just my life and who I've been over the years.
I love that. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your parents believe you would make an impact before anyone else knew your name. Was there ever a moment in your life when you finally believed it yourself, or was there a moment in your life where you didn't, and then you started believing it yourself?
It's interesting because yeah, there's definitely those prayers, there are those conversations for my brother and I too, because I have an older brother who's 23 months older than me, excuse me. And and so there was something from a young age where I think he knew, and even I knew that there was going to be different ways that, yeah, we were going to have some sort of impact. And I think for me, again, it's I didn't know that I was going to be here in this world of crypto and going to different in-person events like you do, or travel across the world. But seeing how it's kind of progressed over the last couple of years, I'm slowly starting to see, not only will that happen, I believe, in this world of crypto, but there will be opportunities outside of the space where I know I'll be able to, start to impact people. But it hasn't necessarily been a kind of all at once type of moment where it feels like, oh my gosh, now I'm reaching thousands of people. It's been kind of steady increments along the way where, I meet a group of 10 or 15 or 20 people, and that kind of expands my network and my circle of people that I get to connect with. And from there, again, it's just been kind of stacking one group of people on top of another. And again, some of that's been, like you said, because of spaces. Some of it's just been being on the timeline, interacting with someone like yourself. I mean, again, going to in-person events. You name it. There's so many different ways that we can connect with people. But yeah, rather than saying it's kind of a all at once moment, maybe like someone has speaking in front of tens of thousands of people at a conference, or some being in some sort of stadium. For me, it's like I said, it's been kind of the gradual, just consistent plugging away. And I'm fortunate now where, yeah, I think like yourself, you get to meet so many people from all across the world, and that is something I'm so grateful for. I never could have imagined that I'd be where I am, after 5.5 years, give or take, of being in this industry, being in this sector.
This crazy freaking industry, right?
Literally.
So let me ask you, before there was Peanut, before the
Mhm.
Web3, before the communities and the spaces, who was that young man trying to figure out where he belonged, and how did you fall into the most chaotic space in the world?
It's interesting because I had actually graduated from college, from a state university here in Minnesota. So born and raised in the Midwest, and I graduated right before the world flipped upside down. So I graduated in fall of 2019. 3 months later, everything that a lot of us knew was not the same anymore. So not only for the first time did they not have some sort of formal education system or structure, that we're all kind of used to, summer break, and then you go back, and then you have winter break, and you repeat that, cycle or process over for many years. I didn't have really any sort of friend group for the first time in my life. Yeah, I still had some friends from high school, and I certainly had some close roommates and some different people that, I met in different clubs, different groups down in college. But everyone was at a different point in their life, different lifestyles, different careers, moving to different parts of the world. And it wasn't necessarily an acceptable thing to go out in public or hang out with people. And so it was kind of a identity crisis for me,
Yeah.
figuring, coming out of college, and great, I have this degree. And now I'm thinking, okay, I have these different ideas or kind of concepts of what I want to do with my life. And for me, honestly, I was looking for a little bit of community. I was looking for a little bit more of purpose in being able to use some of these, skill sets or talents that I kind of accumulated, over all these years of being in school. And I was just trying to figure out where I could kind of fit in. And I struggled, and
Yeah.
it's something, honestly, it's still an ongoing journey even till this day. But I think for me is, again, I kind of worked through that 2019 year and then got into 2020. Really, again, I was looking for another kind of place where I could, leave my impact and be able to, again, honestly, is really just build friendships. And then I found out, hey, I could, take capital or take some money and explore different opportunities, to see, maybe if, I don't know, maybe if I could do something great with it. But it was really, again, just to find, belonging, to be seen, to be heard, to be a part of something, as I always tell people in spaces, to be a part of something that's bigger than just ourselves. So for me, that's really what I was trying to find coming out of college. And it was certainly an interesting journey, even over, a little bit less than 2 years, but coming out of college and then, coming into that timing, I was trying to find, hey, where's kind of my next kind of stopping point going to be along the journey.
Yeah. You shared before that that speech class helped shape the communicator you've become today. So looking back, was that simply a class, or was it the first glimpse of your purpose? Or are you still searching for your purpose?
I would say it's been a key part of finding my deeper purpose, honestly,
Yeah.
in this world and in this life. Because it was honestly, and I'm not exaggerating, it was the toughest class I have ever taken. Like elementary school, middle school, high school, even some of the senior capstone projects and classes I was doing, there was nothing, honestly, that compared to that. And for me, it was my first semester, and of being down in college, and I got extremely sick during that semester too. So I have no idea. It's still, honestly, it was by the grace of God that I finished that semester, and I didn't have, flunking grades. I was absolutely miserable for pretty much the whole semester. And so, I'm fighting through sickness. I'm fighting through, you know, just fear of public speaking. I mean, you name it. And I had a very difficult professor, very difficult. I mean, he was teaching, again, upper level courses like he was, freshman, incoming freshman classes too. So it taught me a lot. It was the one and only strike of plagiarism, believe it or not, that I had in college. So it really taught me a lot. But it was that class that really planted the seed, or I feel like kind of opened up the door to, what I believe will be one of the greatest tools, one of the greatest assets that I'll be able to have, is just being able to, effectively communicate. But it's not just the communication part. It's, as I tell people, it's the ability to listen at a superior level, at an extremely high level, not just being in a conversation to get your point across, but being in a conversation to actually receive what someone's trying to share and what they're trying to communicate. So, yeah, for me, it's almost 10 years later, almost exactly to the day where, I started my first day of speech class. And like you hear a lot of people say, do something for 10 years and then and come back and, and tell me where you are. And yeah, I haven't been actively practicing necessarily, speeches or, my public speaking skills constantly over that duration of time. But there's certainly
Yeah.
been a lot of moments over that time where I've been put to the test, and I've been put in some pretty uncomfortable situations where, whether I want to or not, I got to be ready. You know, so
Okay, so Tell me a little bit more when you say that strike of plagiarism.
Yeah.
Good.
So there, oh gosh, there were probably, mm, there were probably, I think we did 5 or 6 speeches over the course of that semester. So there was a pretty strict kind of cadence and rhythm that we had with exams, speeches, and fitting that all into like 16 weeks basically of a course that first semester. And so it might have been one of the speeches, probably one of the third or fourth speeches, maybe it was towards the middle of the semester, and I was extremely sick at the time. And it was on a subject that I was not very fond of, to be honest. It was something pertaining to a significant event in history, and there was kind of a specific kind of set of guidelines to it. And of course, me being me, I procrastinated it a little bit too long, and I had a tough time even just deciding what I wanted to talk about. Because again, whether it was music back in middle school and quitting, or in high school and quitting band because I didn't like the music I was playing, it's kind of tough to talk about things that you're not passionate about. So I was kind of forced to be in the situation where I didn't necessarily have some sort of interest in what I was talking about. So it was one of those things where I was in a little bit of a crunch. I was taking information from different cited sources that were probably, mm, I mean, this is pre ChatGPT or pre AI, and there was probably a little bit too much copy paste of maybe certain portions of text into my speech, and it was a lost cause. I remember going to the professor's office after class one day, and I see all these highlighted streaks in my speech, and I knew it was not good. And he was kind of questioning, like, hey, do you realize like what this means, and do you realize how bad this looks? And I'm just like, well, hey, we need to have cited sources. I did my best to keep things in their proper context, but it was, again, even that too was the one in kind of only count of plagiarism that I had, even with all the other speeches and the different things that were to follow in all the semesters to come. Yeah, there was, I don't know, maybe the professor had something out for me. I don't know. Yeah, I got trouble with my phone. I think the first or second week of class. Yeah, in front of him. So it was a losing it was a losing battle to start in his class. But it was honestly, like I said, one of the most important classes that I've probably ever taken.
A good learning lesson too, as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Pina, you often talk about being a vessel for God. So tell me, what does that look like in the quiet moments when nobody is watching?
Well, yeah, it's one thing when everyone's watching, or you're at an event, or you have a lot of eyes on you. But for me, it it's finding, it's finding those different quiet moments throughout the day. It's finding those different outlets where you're not getting too heavily distracted or influenced by all these different things in the world. I think, again, part of it's, having structure, routine. And within that, for me, it's, hey, just having conversations with God, throughout the day, rather than just, approaching the day where it's kind of a one moment, or one kind of, moment in time in the day. And then you kind of check that box off and you're done. To me, it's more about, and this was something I learned a lot even in college too, is, how can you have moments with God all throughout the day? And that's something that I think my parents exemplify very strongly. It's something that I've learned from different mentors of mine, role models of all different ages. And so, yeah, for me, it's about, again, having those moments all throughout the day. It's, being able to, make time for working out and having a balance of different, it helps stay disciplined in other areas. Because if I'm too focused on things that aren't, filling me back up, or they're somehow taking me, again, away from God, then it's one of those things where it can be a losing battle, and it can be something that slowly kind of eats away at some of your disciplines and some of your habits. And before you know it, you're living a completely different, life you maybe even realize or recognize, but there's things that are so, deeply rooted because your priorities are so out of balance that, again, you're spending times on, spending large amounts of time on things that really aren't, life giving, or aren't, really filling you back up at the end of the day.
How do you carry that and channel it publicly, especially in a space where it's so toxic? Being in crypto, where we are, I know that you pretty much keep a very positive environment around you, but sometimes that's very difficult. Even if you try to, you're still going to get the negativity. When you're growing publicly, it can't be peaches and cream. How do you continue to be that vessel in public eye?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's always been about having, very, very just, well, I probably not the proper grammatical way to say it, but just honestly, people that are gonna uplift me, people that are, great, you know, role models, just people who are living a life that is a life that, I respect and I cherish. It's, again, I think, like a lot of us who have a lot of seen some of the comments here in lifetime, you know, some of the lives, that of people that I look up to, they're achieving things that I want to go and achieve in some sort of way, whether, again, it's a family, there's a certain career that they're crushing, or there's certain skill sets they're working on. It's, again, being able to have those people, speak life into me. It's looking at, hey, how do they live their life? How do they talk? How do they treat other people? There's so many little things. Even, again, I think this is something, I mean, I even have to watch and consider too, but the music that we listen to, and the music that other people play, we may think, oh, it's just words, but, and I'm no scientist, but there's been different studies, that show the vibration, the energy levels that music gives off can change the structure, kind of the composition, of water molecules. And so, for us as humans, we're made of such a large portion of water. People don't realize, yeah, music does have such a significant impact on who we are. So again, even something simple like music, I think is super important to consider as well. So again, the kind of the inner circle of people, I think, is super important. Within that, again, who are kind of, you know, kind of like the people to my left and right, friends that are very close to me. Within that circle, there's mentors, like I said, role models. Even, my parents are people that I respect and look up to. But it's those people, again, that are play such a pivotal role. We've all heard, the sayings, you're the sum, you're the average of your closest friends, your five closest friends. And I've seen that play out for a lot of my other friends in life, some positive, some negative. And so for me, again, it's again doing my best to really just lean into my discernment that I think I've been gifted at a young age. I'm not saying I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out, and there's still times I have mistakes. I think I understand or know people, and unfortunately, they prove to be someone completely different. A year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. So again, for me, it's just, again, taking time to kind of analyze and reflect on, hey, who's closest to me, and then, of course, like I said too, how do I stay positive? How do I continue just to be, kind of a vessel, a messenger of hope and light and positivity? It's, man, taking care of myself, physically. I know it's something that, yourself and a number of other people on this platform talk about too, but even, hydration and sleep and working out, taking care of yourself, like me, just, going, taking my dog on walks. Like it's the simple things that I think we can do in the day to day that, take a little bit of stress, take a little bit of, weight off of us. It's, again, not always the grand things that I think we paint life out to be, that's going to take some sort of stress or load off of us. It's, again, those little things that we really cherish, that we have to kind of unplug a little bit. Even just reading a book, like a physical book, or your Bible, or whatever it is. Like, what a concept. Everything is digital now, but just those those daily habits, those routines for me, honestly, with the right people around me, music, just different little choices throughout the day, honestly, that really does get me through, being in this space, which again, as you've seen, I see a lot of people in the comments too. There's a lot of things that can drag us down, or that, whether we want to or not, they try and kind of suck us and pull us into the drama and the gossip. And I just don't have time for it. I've never been about drama. I've never been about gossip. I don't go looking for it. I don't ask for it. And honestly, I think that's part of it too. If you're not looking for trouble, if you're not digging for it, a lot of times it's not going to find you. Yeah, there's sometimes that there's exceptions to it, and people just are out for you because they're jealous and they don't want to see you
Mhm.
thrive and succeed, like you have been over the last couple of years. Like me flipping the tables here on you a little bit is seeing your growth and your evolution from, you know first doing spaces and some live streams and working with Goxstein Media, and you're traveling all over the country and reporting on different things, and here you are now. It's yeah, it's just, again, it's those little things that I think allow us again to stay on kind of the straight and narrow. And like I said, it's not always these grand things that, again, people maybe paint it out to be. It's, hey, what can you do just to kind of stay mentally sane? And again, just finding things that you enjoy, for me, I think, is what has allowed me to, again, just stay on the path that I have been on.
It's like a moment of full circle having you on the show, right? I remember you were a baby in the space years ago, and then all of a sudden here you are building communities, empowering people. And a lot of people love you and, are excited for you coming on the show. How do you but let me take it back a little bit. Like, how do you deal with the negativity if it's ever come around you? How do you just, like, get out of it? Because even if you try to be positive and stay positive, there is also that is going to say something, or like you said, they might just be jealous or don't like you for whatever reason it is. And sometimes, that negativity tries to come around, or that toxicity, that craziness. How do you get yourself away from it? Or you just ignore it?
Yeah, well, there's certainly times where I do get sucked into it, and
Because we're
it's rather,
humans.
yeah, it's rather easy to be impulsive, and someone kind of strikes us a certain way, and it catches us, on a particular day. We're in a completely different headspace, and I've had to learn from a variety of different people in the space where, I just kind of bounce questions off of them and say, like, hey, is this like kind of out of pocket? Like, am I wrong here with something I said? Or what's kind of your perspective of someone? Like, do you know who this person is? Like, why would they respond to me in this type of way? And there's a lot of times where, based off of a couple of conversations, more often than not, I get a little bit better perspective on, hey, you know what, someone's just maybe not doing good in life, and they just feel the need to lash out. And so I think understanding, or having a better understanding of where people maybe are in life, and knowing that oftentimes, hurt people hurt other people, and there's probably a lot of not so good things that are going on in their life. And so rather than, reacting, super negatively, or getting sucked into their drama, or whatever it is that they want me to entertain, yeah, a lot of times you just, as tough as it is, you got to ignore it, or you just, as people say, mute them, block them. Which again is super tough for me, because I do have a very compassionate heart. That's probably like one of the highest things that I've tested on even recently. Is compassion is like, it's 99. It's maxed out. And so yeah, it does make it tough when, again, as I have in my bio, like Mr. Heart on Sleeve, and that was something I had kind of honestly just came up with on the whim. But I think it's reflective of even kind of how you asked this question, because again, for me, people definitely know when, I would say, for the most part, they know that I'm usually up. But there's definitely times where sometimes I can kind of, be down. I try not to show it a lot, but when I'm down, people feel it and see it. And so, again, at the end of the day, it's not to say I'm trying to hide things, but I know that there are people that look to me for certain things, hope, inspiration, just somebody who's positive, uplifting, supportive. And to me, it's knowing like, hey, I want to make sure I can take care of myself to the best of my ability, regardless of what's going on or trying to come at me, because I know that there's other people that are depending and counting on me. So to me, it's kind of like that self accountability I have, where I hate to let people down. Obviously, it's going to happen. I have my shortcomings, mistakes, and downfalls, but if there's things that I can control and it comes down to effort, I never want to let people down because I didn't give it my all. That's something that's just,
Yeah.
unexcusable to me. So anyways, you're seeing, I can take some of these questions and I'm Mr. Monologue, as people say, but it comes from a place of passion. And again, honestly, just wanting sometimes to share, some of these answers from, as I say, like different angles. So it kind of
Yeah.
gives people, anyone who's listening in, this angle may not connect with a person, but this way does. And so I think it's important sometimes just to kind of, again, hit things from kind of a 360 degree if I can. So, anyone that's listening, has something that's, impactful, something that they can take away from what I'm sharing.
Peanut, you hurt people. You try to have compassion and, you try to extend grace, but at what point do you
Connection. Maybe we'll be back.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, maybe I rugged, you rugged. I don't know. Someone just asked, did she rug? It might have been me. It might have been me for all I know.
Oh my goodness gracious. And why is it doing this to my screen? No. Why is it saying there's a third person here?
Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you, it hasn't done this to me in a long time
Oh my
where it
gosh.
booted me, but we're getting a lot of rain over here. So it's probably like our internet service and all that stuff is crazy. Oh my God.
Being goofy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's showing me twice in here.
We'll fight through the technical difficulties.
There we go. It's fixed now. I'm
Lovely.
sorry. So, okay. Did you
No,
say
all
a
good.
lot before I rugged? This is what a rug looks like, guys. This is truly what a rug looks like. Oh my gosh.
I think you were in the middle of talking, and I was just thinking, okay, let me not move too drastically because she still may be talking. So I don't know where you had left off on a question. Somebody may be able to help
Yeah,
us
so the question
reference
that
where
I
we
had
were
is that
last.
you had talked about hurt people, and then,
Yes.
you continue to be patient, extend grace, but at what point do you cut yourself out and be like, you know what, I need to stop to protect your own peace, to protect your own self?
Yeah. I don't believe that it's a one size fits all type of answer. There's different situations that I believe maybe account for a little bit more grace, and I won't even say leniency, but again, each person, each situation is, it's gonna be unique. I don't think any two situations are gonna be exactly the same. So for me, it's understanding or looking at, hey, are people maybe lying? they're saying one thing to me and then they're doing another thing behind the scenes, or if they're doing something repeatedly over and over again. I think I have a problem with that, especially when people are saying things publicly and putting it out there for others to hear.
Hmm.
At least in my opinion, that kind of puts you, and not to say it in this way of like putting you on a pedestal, but I think that kind of holds you to a higher standard or higher level if you're willing to say, hey, you know I don't like it when you do that, when people do this, or you shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. But then again, they themselves are going back and doing that. It's like, that's when I have an issue with people. And again, so there may be things that aren't even necessarily said to me. I'm just observing from like kind of a public standpoint, like anyone else. And I'm just kind of like taking I'm just kind of monitoring. Of course, gonna if things happen to me where people aren't truthful, I really don't have much tolerance for that. And it's kind of funny too, because I posted about this the other day around gift receiving, and it seems like a lot of people had interacted and engaged with it. And my kind of thought process around it was, if I find some sort of gift, it could be an NFT, it could be I could hand make something, or there's something that I do that is based on thoughtfulness and intentionality with certain characteristics and qualities about someone, and I take that gift and I try and pair it with someone as best as I can. For me, when I see people who don't have like, again, this is just another example of people who don't respect said gift, and they just toss it away, or in a lot of our cases, I've seen people just like, we different NFTs, they just, toss them into bid offers that are out there. To me, it's like, wow, okay, so you're telling me that our friendship is worth $20, $50, $100, a couple $100. And for me, that is, and again, there were some good opinions back and forth on it. But again, the biggest thing for me, and I think this is applicable in a number of different circumstances, just beyond gift giving or gift receiving, I should say, is there's something about, again, that I can, like, I go back to that thoughtfulness and intentionality. And if people can't respect that, if people can't even hold on to something that, again, isn't necessarily worth a lot of money, but they're trying to like squeeze everything they can out of it, to me, I don't want that type of person in my life either. Because if I can't, and this may be, applicable for yourself too, Leslie, if you can't be trusted with a little, how can you be trusted with a lot? And it's those moments where it may not seem like it's super significant. And to me, it's really not about the money. It's about the principles. It's about the morals, the values, the standards that you have. And again, if you can't handle something little like that, like if you have tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or we're on some sort of business venture together, I don't know if I can trust you. And that may be an overreaction, but who's to say that if there's different situations that kind of pull or test your greed, or kind of like our worldly desires, I mean, who's to say what could happen then? So it's one of those realities that different mentors, different role models have kind of taught me. Hey, can I trust you in this situation? And it's a test. And at times I didn't know it was a test. And they're like, okay, that was what I was looking for. Can you handle it then? Okay, I can trust you with more. That's led to different opportunities. And so that's how I look at friendships and dynamics
Hmm.
too. It's built on trust. I tell people, for any connection, for any friendship to thrive, and I'm sure yourself, a lot of people that are in the chat could agree, you got to have trust, and you got to somewhat enjoy being around that person too. If you can't trust, you can't enjoy being around people, you're probably not going to spend a lot of time around them. You're probably not going to want to invest into them in the first place. So that's how I try and approach friendships and dynamics. And if I can't trust people, and if I don't enjoy being around them anymore, yeah, I'm probably just not going to have them around anymore. And it's not like a high school breakup where I'm posting online and dragging people's name through the mud. No, I hope you never see me do that. And if you do, you should probably reach out to me and ask what's going on, if I'm doing okay, because that's not how I go about it. I'll just go about my business. I'll just completely disengage, and they won't hear from me again.
Like, what is going on, Peanut? And I think we see that in this space, right? Where I think trust has to be earned because everyone can just talk. And can they really walk the talk or whatever that saying is? And one of the things that we see time and time again is that in this space, there's a lot of people that use people too. You know, it's like we do have a lot of people that will have you believe that they can be trustworthy and then they show you that they can't. And a lot of the times too, it's like when you decide to stop giving into whatever it is that you're giving into, that's when they truly show you that, you know, what your value and what your worth is like, okay, you know what, I can't benefit from you anymore. I didn't extract what I needed to from you, so I'm going to treat you like the way that I really feel.
Yep.
And I mean, that happened a lot over the last few years. And you have to get to a point where it's like, you know what? You have to cut your access to those type of people because your time is valuable, your time is precious, and we're trying to build in this space. And if they show you that, you know, you're no longer of service or you're no longer of benefit because you said no or you didn't do something that you wanted, then you know what? People are going to show you who they are. You just have to sometimes step back and allow them to show you who they are. And then you act accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But
exactly.
So, Peanut, you entered crypto late 2020. So you entered without knowing much about the industry. And like many of us, you could have simply just become another investor chasing the next opportunity. I think we do it at one point or another. I think that's why we come into crypto, right? But instead, you know, you have become someone who built relationships first. What strikes me is that you didn't just build a following, like you said, you're building trust. So what was it about Web3 that made you believe this was where you are supposed to be and you are supposed to build?
Well, it wasn't something that honestly I had noticed right away. It actually had taken me probably at least a couple of years to really notice. Funny enough, there was a mentor that I had in my life for a couple of years towards the end of college, actually right when I got out of college and for some time after. And it was over the course of those couple of years where he got me to understand my why. And this is kind of full circle on this question here. And figuring out what my why was, I identified and came to the conclusion that for me, my why is to, you know, be a light in a very dark world and dark space, to support people, you know, on their dreams, their goals, their and you know current endeavors that they have, and to challenge people to be, you know, their best self. And so for me, it's not necessarily so much about the setting itself. Yes, the setting, the scenery does matter to an extent, but for me, I've seen that I can execute on all avenues or all parts of my life, 3 parts. And so for me, that is where I find the most truest joy and fulfillment in life is operating in each of those capacities. And it just happens to be that, you know, there are, again, great people that I've been able to meet. So it keeps me around here. There's, you know, great opportunities in terms of career changing moves that you can make. You can work with great organizations and brands. And of course, you know, there's, you know, great personal things in terms of, you know, being able to, you know, invest in different things and see, you know, your life completely change around, you know, over the course of maybe a couple of minutes, hours, days, weeks, years, you name it. And being able to, you know, pass it on to, you know, future generations, you know, of the family, you know, future family one day. You know, for me, you know, again, that's where, again, being able to have those realities, being able to live out my why, you know, that's why honestly, like I stick around and I want to continue to be here. So yeah, again, for me, like that's why, again, I think I enjoy being here so much, is because, again, like especially the people. Honestly, it really is the people. Getting to find is like kind of going full circle with coming out of college. Again, I didn't really have that community. I was kind of a lost soul out here, just wondering like, hey, where's the next kind of group of friends that I'm gonna have?
Yeah.
And it just ended up to be in the space, and we had a lot of overlap in life, a lot of commonalities, and we can talk about anything. And people are uplifting and they're chasing their dreams and doing great things, and that's inspiring to me. And I'm like, what, like, where else would I want to be? And you can do stuff at any time of the day, any hour. You could be working on something at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. I mean, to me, it's the freedom, it's the flexibility that comes from being in the space too that I love. But there's also great responsibility, as you got to stay disciplined. You got to have your priorities set. Otherwise, this show doesn't just happen if you don't have things prioritized. And if it doesn't matter, there's going to be things that fall through the cracks. So I think you've been able to probably see that over your journey too.
Yep. Absolutely. So looking back at your first year to where you are now, what's something you got completely wrong? And that now what these people supported me along the way, and they have been a huge part of where I'm at.
What I got wrong in the first year, well, pretty much jumping in blindly in the things, to be honest, because the first thing crypto related that I had jumped into was a complete rug within less than a month. So I'd taken
those rugs.
I had taken I'd taken a good chunk of money, like 4 figures worth. So it was a good amount of money for me. And I was like, okay, well, let's try this. Other friends of mine are in it. It's kind of like, hey, if my friends are jumping off the bridge, am I going to go jump off the bridge? In that case, I was like, sure, why not? And yeah, that it taught me a very valuable lesson. And so now it's having a little bit more of a seasoned kind of mindset and approach where I'm a little bit slower to jump into things, right? I spend time looking at the people that are around other people leading something. If I'm saying, hey, I want to get connected to this group or this team, okay, who's kind of the surrounding cast or who supports them? So that's something, and that's super important now that I had no regard for when I first started. And then, gosh, in terms of, I don't want to get the second part of your question wrong. Could you repeat that? I don't want to go on some sort of tangent here.
I was gonna say, like, now that you're where you are right now, and then you're looking back, is there like a group of people that have been a huge support system in helping your growth, helping open doors?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny how there's very few people that are going to be a part of our journey for an extended period of time. You're going to have a couple ride or dies. And I would say I'm pretty fortunate that I have a pretty, not necessarily an overly large group of people, but there are several people that I still communicate with regularly that I've known since basically the start of my journey or pretty early on. And I mean, that to me it's priceless. I mean, there are people who, kind of just give me the words I need to hear certain days, or them just seeing them around. It gives me inspiration and hope. Like, man, I know I've been through stuff. I know they've been through stuff. Man, if they can do it, I can do it. And it's honestly, again, a lot of people that I've met in some of the first NFT communities that I joined way back when, which was actually late 2022 was when so there was about 2 years where I didn't touch anything related to NFTs. I completely missed out on that window. But it was, a lot of those people that I started connecting with when it came to NFTs that, there's a large group of them that I still interact with, that I still, again, like I said, talk with on the phone, or, we're on spaces late at night on the weekend or whatever it is. But yeah, those core group of people that are still with me, I mean, they've taught me and there's definitely a core group of people, but one person in particular, his name is Instrumental. He's from up in Canada, and he was single-handedly probably one of the most important people a part of my journey, because he was, again, one of the first friends I had in the first NFT group that I really joined. And it was over the course of a couple of months, me talking about starting my peanut gallery space. And it's crazy to think that we're on episode 100, and I think what I just did 119 yesterday. So yeah, to think that at one point I was at 0, I hadn't started yet, and he was saying, Peanut, you gotta stop talking about it. You just gotta do it. I mean, you've been talking about this for months. Yeah, it's gonna suck probably your first several spaces, and it did. I remembered how my first couple of spaces were structured, and the thing that was most interesting though about those first couple of spaces, it was, again, because of my one particular friend, Instrumental, who said, you just gotta do it. You just gotta start, and then you have data, you have information to process and kind of look at and say, hey, is this working or is it not? And it's funny to look back on that moment and say, what I was trying to put into one space, the peanut gallery, has now evolved into 3 separate spaces now that happen weekly. So that goes to show, you may have this kind of grandiose vision or plan, and you may have to kind of condense it down a little bit. And there may be, again, there may be a distinct reason why certain things kind of fall off to the side. But for me, it's realizing, hey, you know what? I was supposed to shave off a lot to the sides, because there were other people that have come along my journey, and we've tackled those parts of the journey together. I couldn't do it on my own. So I'm thankful that I had that perspective to start, to just try, and more than try. I mean, I've been doing it as much as I can for, months upon months. But yeah, it was just starting it where I then saw and felt, hey, this is not, I can't possibly do 3 spaces in one space. It's not going to happen. But again, over the course of time, sure enough, it's broken into 3 different spaces that happen weekly now. And like I said, I wouldn't have known if I didn't start, if I just didn't try in the first place.
Yeah. So the name Peanut,
Mhm.
it makes a lot of people smile.
Mhm.
Did you know that back then that something as simple as a name or a nickname could become a brand recognized by many? And then how the heck did you come up with Peanut?
Yeah. So again, full circle back to where we started this whole conversation in the ambulance. That was basically the first nickname that my parents gave me. Came out of the ambulance with my mom, rolled into the hospital, was already wrapped in the tinfoil blanket, and that was one of the first things that came out of my parents' mouth. I guess together, collectively, they're both like, looks like a little peanut.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's funny again how just a moment like that, wasn't necessarily an overly big baby at the time. I was probably kind of average, maybe slightly smaller than, kind of an average size or length baby. And then it went from peanut to, maybe some people who are listening and are familiar with Dairy Queen. I always forget what parts of the US that Dairy Queen is in, but Dairy Queen has a dessert. It's the peanut buster parfait, and that's what kind of the nickname evolved into. But then peanut was used for some of the different PlayStation profile names I had over the years. Like it kind of appeared in different settings and in different ways, and then it was used as my gamer tag when I still played a lot of video games, which again I don't have time for anymore. I'm too locked into the space here. I don't have time to get sucked into 2 or 3 hour video game sessions anymore. But yeah, during like my teenager years, it was definitely a part of my life. And it's kind of funny because it died out a little bit during my years of high school, and then as I got into college, I was a part of different clubs and different groups. There are a lot of times that we would have name tags on, just getting to know
Yeah.
people is kind of a regular thing for a lot of the events that you're part of on anything kind of campus related. And so it was kind of over the course of time where I was like, well, hey, if I'm looking to be memorable, because you're meeting so many people for the first time, and you're trying to make a good first impression. And especially being a freshman, or even being, a second year student, being a sophomore, again, that was kind of my mindset of, how can I be remembered or be memorable if I have these first impressions with tons of people, hundreds and hundreds of people. And so I was like, well, you know what would be kind of a fun thing to do? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do something completely ridiculous, irrelevant to me. But I'm like, well, what if I did Peanut? And it's funny because it actually, again, kind of ended up being a part of my journey here on X, on Twitter, is that I would have, and it's funny because I still have it on my Discord profile, but it used to always just be lowercase PEA and then capital NUT, and people were like, well, Peanut, like,
I remember
why the
that.
capital Nut? Yeah, why the capital Nut? Like, people would always like question. I'm like, I don't know, like, it's just, again, like, you laugh, you smile, but really it was to do something that was different, because again, a lot of people have complex names, or even if it's a short name, you hear a lot of things that are similar, and you're trying to remember, key facts about someone to try and attach a fun fact to a name. And a lot of times it's so tough. So I was like, well, what can I do again that's unique to me, that makes sense? And again, you think about it, I'm like, how can I make people laugh or smile when I first meet them? And again, probably 99 times out of 100, it seems, almost staying there 100% of the time, people are like Peanut, and they either are laughing or smiling or both. And for me, I've seen the power that has just on people's demeanor, body language. And
Yeah.
it's, man, if you can strike that kind of emotion or feeling when you're first meeting someone, there's a very good chance that you're not going to be, and it goes for anyone with whatever kind of nickname or whatever you go by. If you have some sort of catchphrase or slogan with your name, people won't forget you. So that was kind of kind of what I leaned into. And part of that was just realizing, hey, I probably don't want to use necessarily my full name. I mean, some people like yourself, others, like, they don't mind putting their name out there, but I was like, I don't know if I want to use my
Yeah.
first name and last name. I'd rather kind of have an alias. And I was like, well, no better thing than Peanut. And honestly, it's just landed, it's worked. And I bumped into some Peanuts from time to time, but I really don't know any other Peanuts in this kind of like crypto Twitter X bubble, so to speak. So for me, I kind of picked my niche, kind of my lane, and it's just, again, something, like I said, that people enjoy. I pretty much go by Peanut strictly. So yeah, and it's not even necessarily like I don't mind telling people, but it's just, hey, if there's some way that I can be different and people can remember me, why not just lean into Peanut?
No, absolutely. So the word around here, community, it
Mhm.
gets used constantly in this space. And we know communities, they don't survive because of local or floor prices. They survive because people choose to stay. Long Lost NFT has weathered multiple market cycles. You've helped lead thousands of conversations through spaces that tells me you learned something about the human nature. What's the difference between growing a community and earning a community in your
You're putting me in the hot seat. It's different because I'm usually the one being on the other side of this. This is good. This is getting me to think a little bit differently, which, again, I like these challenges. Well, growing a community, I believe a lot of times is based around, could kind of answer this a couple of ways, but I believe that growing oftentimes is more based around the metrics, the numbers. It's more based around some of the transactional things that can go on in the space. And I know people could probably, play devil's advocate and maybe spin it a little bit different way, but yeah, I think growing is more oftentimes based around, performing just a task. And you're, not to say we're robots, but again, growing comes from, again, looking at the numbers, like I said, looking at the metrics, saying, hey, we're at this amount of holders. How can we add 50 this month? Or, hey, we're at this floor price. I mean, again, some people say they don't care, but the truth is we all look at it. We're all aware of it no matter what. People can't convince me otherwise. Um, Again, if you're actively collecting and buying stuff, you have to know you have to know where some of those numbers are. But again, growing. It's numbers based, it's the metrics, it's the transactions, it's, again, it's very kind of, like I said, almost like robotic. Like there's not really a lot of like human emotion in that. And so for me, that's what I think. Again, I mean, growing, again, it could be even incentives. Hey, there could be some sort of incentive. That's a great way to grow the community, saying, hey, I see people, a lot of prominent leaders do it all the time, where there's maybe some sort of extra, promo that they want to throw in. Hey, buy this and I'll throw in X, Y, and Z, or I'll allow you to trade something or whatever. There's all sorts of different things that go on in the NFT world. But again, I think that's a great way to, again, as you said, grow the community. But earning, I mean, is a completely different thing. I think that's where, instead of, again, kind of the transactional, the number focus, kind of more of, like I said, non the non-emotional side of things, the earning is more tied, I think, to again, the human psychology, the emotion of saying, hey, you know what, how do you treat people individually in the DMs, just like you would treat people on the timeline, on spaces, in group chats? Do you have consistency in your character? Again, like I said, just how you treat people. How are you speaking about other people? Are you, again, uplifting, supporting other groups? It's those actions that you're doing on a regular basis. I believe that is what leads to earning, a community, earning people's, again, it goes back to that whole trust thing. People
Yeah.
people want to know when they're getting into something. And this is something that I tell people too, when it comes to, and I'm sure the same thing for you with live streams here. I say the same thing for spaces, even, is people want to count on people want to be able to count on something. Excuse me, some of these words, some of these thoughts here get entangled, but they want to know that something is consistent, that they can rely on it, that they know that, hey, if I'm going to spend time on a Thursday evening and pull up to the peanut gallery, they want to know that it's going to start at a certain time. They want to know that it could run for a certain length of time if they have different things going on. It's knowing that, hey, you know what, even if it's hour 6 or 7, which we ran for 9.5 hours almost last night, which was crazy. That was probably one of the longest peanut gallery spaces I've done. People want to know that they can still show up on hour 8 or 9, and I'm still going to give that person the same respect and the same time of day as I did, someone that spoke within the first half an hour of the space. It's realizing or saying, hey, if I said something or put something on the timeline, if it was some sort of giveaway or some sort of, again, some sort of incentive to grow the community, I mean, a great way to earn it is, hey, are you trustworthy? Do you actually say what you mean and mean what you say? Can your word be counted on? I mean, it's just the little things. So yeah, for me, again, it's making people feel seen and heard. Again, just kind of like I said, with how do you have a connection, a friendship to start? It's trust and enjoying being around them. I think for a lot of people being in this space, again, they just want to be seen and heard. Really, that's what it comes down to. If people know that certain thoughts that they offer, and not everything that people suggest, we can implement. I think you realize that too, probably. Even with your show, people say, hey, do this, do this, do that. Well, you're not going to be able to implement everything, but maybe there's some things that you can tweak that can, that I'm sure you've tweaked over time, that have enhanced the viewer experience here. And so again, for me, I think that earns a community is being able to, again, build that trust, being able to do things that allow people to feel a part of your world, a part of your journey, and that you're willing to go to bat for people too. And I tell people, it's doing the simple and foundational things with excellence, doing it at a high level over a consistently long period of time, that allows you to have that kind of longevity and sustainability with people. And once you have that, there's a different type of bond, there's a different type of connection then that you can form with people. And that's where, what, even if some things aren't the flashiest or the most, sexiest thing, if you're not rolling out updates one after another, week after week, they're really, people are here for, yes, we're here for making money. I get that. People say we're not, but come on. There could be other great things that you donate your time to, and philanthropy efforts that are far beyond the space. But the point being said, it's again, it's about just, yes, making money, but it's about, again, it's about making people, like I said, feel seen and heard, that their time is well spent, that they can have these connections and friendships that maybe they don't get in other areas of life. And that's why, again, I think a lot of people come here is they're looking for other people to hang out with. And if you can have fun, if you can make some money,
Wait,
again,
Peanut, so you're not telling me people are coming here for money? Because my misconception is that everybody comes into crypto and Web3 looking for financial freedom. So I didn't come here to see what friends I'm going to make. In all honesty, if somebody was going to interview and tell me, what are you coming here for? Shoot, for financial freedom, to make money, to make, bank. And then it led
yeah.
into a different path for me. But come on, Peanut.
Uh,
We can't sit here and say people don't come for the money. Well, unless you were one of those unique ones that came here to make
no.
friends.
It was a mixture of things, honestly. Like I was kind of sharing before. Yeah, the whole world flipped upside down. I was done with college. I was just trying to look for my next friend group to be around, and of course, I wanted to explore different ways I could. But again, it's people are here to collect, to make money. But again, you know, regardless of how far kind of down the spectrum that someone is in terms of just going after certain goals on a personal level, you still got to have other people that are there with you along the journey for you to be able to go and do said things too. So that's where, again, it's again, like I said, just those basic things that I think we can all do. Again, not everyone wants to, or not everyone wants to necessarily grow some sort of community, but for me, I find so much fulfillment and so much joy being able to, again, connect and bring people together. And I think that's something that I've been able to see more and more. I've been able to see the fruits of my labor over the last couple of years kind of popping up now, where I get such a joy knowing, hey, this person has this type of skill set and this person has this complementary skill set. How can I play a part in just kind of at least introducing people together? It doesn't mean that they have to do something together for me to get some sort of satisfaction, but it's really, again, just realizing, hey, there's people that are in the same vicinity and they don't know of each other. But if I can be like, hey, I like this person because X, Y, and Z, and hey, I like them because of this. Well, again, people are looking for others that are trustworthy, that are credible, that can actually do what they say they can do. And as we know, a lot of times people put up a front, or they can only do partially of what they claim to do. So yeah, again, that's where I've found that, I can kind of merge the two. And I'll kind of end my point here is, like you said, growing and earning, by being kind of that middleman or that connector, I can kind of do both at the same time too, where people are saying, hey, like, he's actually trustworthy, he's bringing good people to us. And at the same time, like that, a lot of times I've found it creates this interest, or it sparks this interest in people where they want to start to take interest in what it is that I'm doing. And then it's like, oh, wow, I want to join this. I want to be in this. Next thing you know, it's like, okay, this is growing and I'm bringing people together. And it's kind of like this back and forth between growing and earning.
Yeah. You have such a positive view and positive outlook over this whole space and the people and, and your journey and everything. Have you ever been burned to the point where it's like, instead of meeting people and being like, this could be a good person, I can trust this person, there's skepticism? Because, and I'm saying this because now when I enter spaces, when I meet people, I don't open up right away anymore. And I am skeptical about every single person until we really get to meet and until that trust is earned. And the reason being is because I have been burnt a lot in this space because of that. It's like when you are a genuine person and you meet genuine people in this space, there's that connection, but not every single person is genuine. There are people that are out there for their own motives, and you don't realize that until time after, because we have a lot of users in the space. We have a lot of leeches in the space. We have a lot of people that are out there to get your money and for you to be exit liquidity and to rug you and, for you to work for them for free. And at one point or another, it's like, where do you draw the line and be like, you know what? I am a positive person. I'm going to still continue to be the way that I am, but I am going to put up a wall of skepticism until I really get to know, the person or the community that I want to be a part of.
Yeah. So for me, again, it's interesting. I approach this a little bit differently, and I love it because I get to learn from you, as maybe you learn about some different things from myself here, and hopefully some other people that are watching this too, or go back and watch it. But for me, I I I lean on the people that I have established great connections with. I see Toph jumped in. Appreciate you, man, for being here. I lean on, again, those people that I've been able to meet, that I've been able to know over a long period of time. And again, I leverage, and again, so people may take this out of context, but like I leverage, I really try to utilize, again, those people that I know that I have a really strong connection with. And this is what I tell people too, like, find that one good community, or like a group of people, and start to kind of look around, like the initial kind of ring or initial layer of people that are close to them. Because if this group of people is good, they're probably going to also attract other really quality people around them too. And yeah, there's times where we kind of branch out. And again, so it's dual side. That's kind of one example, and I'll finish that thought. But there's also the reality of, I tell people, hey, if you're not meeting new people, it could be like completely new people. There's not any sort of there's not sort of any bubble map that like ties you to someone. It's just someone completely far off in the distance, but you end up on their feed or their profile, or you end up with them on a space. There may be like no mutual connections. And so I think that's, again, important to kind of feel people out and kind of see, like, hey, how do they talk in spaces? What do they post about? Are they dragging people down? What are they talking about? What's their voice? And so you have that
Mm.
element. And I'm usually kind of think like you, kind of cautious. I'm not gonna jump right into things and be like, oh my gosh, you're my best friend, let's talk this, I'm gonna open
We're
up.
besties now.
Yeah, we're besties, which I've never used that, like besties or best friend. Like, I learned about that a little bit in college too, where it's like I have good friends, but I don't have a best friend. Like, I don't know. That's just
You
my
don't
how
have
my,
no
my
ride
brain's
or
wired.
dies that would be you a shovel and they don't even ask why and they're like, I got the truck.
I have a core group of really solid buddies that I could count on probably about 5 or 6 of them, that they would be there for me. But there's not like one person who's like above or elevated above everyone else. It's like, to me, it's like a
It's a group.
core.
Yes, I have the
It's a
same.
group. It's like a
It's
group
like
around like a
each one serves its
campfire.
own purpose. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. So you have that example of kind of random one-off people that, again, you may have no connection with, and that happens. And I challenge myself always to be, again, expanding the network, expanding my circle. But then kind of on the flip side, I kind of shared a little bit, it's like I said, finding those quality people and finding the closest people to those people, where I know, again, hey, you know what, these people have, again, these type of standards, morals, values, or I know how people are wired in this type of way. And I know that they're probably going to be attracting a similar type of person, or a similar type of community. Not always, because the farther you get out on certain communities, there's some people that are a little crazy, a little wonky. So you got to be
Oh my
careful.
God,
But
yes.
for the most part, though, like the core people that really are about the mission at hand for particular brands and groups, that it's a pretty safe bet. And so, again, I really just try and look and see, hey, I joined, I had a couple of communities initially or early on in my NFT journey. And then I was kind of looking, okay, who do they connect with? And next thing you know, it became, a group from 1 to 2 to 3 to like 6 or 7 or 8, because, again, there's, those initial groups that they have that are just, they're like best buds. Not every group I know is going to have, great communities that they're connected with. Some are more kind of isolated. They kind of do their own thing. They're not really out there branching out with different groups, and that's okay. Everyone has their own agenda. But it's kind of like I try and kind of actively merge and blend both of those realities together, where I lean on those existing connections. And sometimes it goes from one community. It's kind of like a trail of breadcrumbs, where you just keep kind of finding another great community and another great community based on you know again, one group you found, and that could expand from 1 to 20 or 25. And yeah, it's hard to, as you probably know too, it's hard to keep up with that many groups. And I've definitely hit my bandwidth. I've definitely gotten stretched where I think, oh, I can keep up with. No, you can't keep up with 20 groups actively, unless you got some, a group of assistants or something crazy. And You got people that are doing stuff left and right to keep up with, updates and announcements. You're not going to be able to give your full self that far spread out. It's just not possible. So again, there's things within reason, and you have to kind of, as I say, push and pull on certain levers. Sometimes it's spending, more people with one group. Other times, it's putting your time and effort towards other groups. But like I said, it's a merge of both. Where again, I got to lean on people that I've already built connections with, and there's times where I have to again lean on kind of my discernment and understanding of how people are. And I'm sure you've had it too. You jump in spaces and you're like, I don't really like kind of the energy that someone's putting off. Like this isn't someone that I enjoy being around. Or if it's super negative and super down, I'm not saying you got to be like overly positive, like nothing's wrong with the world. But if there isn't really substance and it's just yelling or bickering at people, like I usually can get a pretty good read on people where it's just I'd rather pass. Even if maybe there's something good in them and great, more power to them and whoever they're connected with. But there's certain things I look for. I look to stay away from, and if I see those things, I've realized that it's not worth the time and energy, because not only can those choices that I have to be in close proximity to someone else affect me, but it also can have a ripple effect on people, around me too. So again, whether it's friendships or even again basic stuff like security, crypto security in the space, and we could go down a whole rabbit hole with that, everything that's been going on
Oh my
lately.
God.
You know,
That would be a whole
as
other
we,
conversation.
a whole other episode, but I'll keep it short, 10 seconds. Like, as we want to keep ourselves safe, we should have the respect and dignity to keep our friends safe too. Like, hey, I saw this update or I saw this announcement, you should check this. Okay, cool. And you send it to your friends, like, hey, be on the lookout. Just basic things like that. I think, like, again, it applies more in a relational situation, friendship situation. Yeah, that should be the same thing with security and so many other different things, not just that. But those are just two examples that come to mind.
No, absolutely. Peanut, when it's all said and done, what do you hope people remember about you?
Yeah. Whew. Well, it's funny because I've definitely been thinking about that more. As unfortunately, I've had some close deaths to the family. Had a neighbor that shares the same yard that I've grown up in. She had passed away within the last couple of weeks, and then they had a family member, a great aunt, that had passed away within the last couple of months. And so again, it's gotten me to think, hey, after like everything's said and done, or if I'm, completely out of this space for some reason, like something changes or happens in my life, for me, again, I think what is most important is hearing people say, or hoping to hear people say, hey, you know what? There was always a focus to bring people together. Um, there was always an emphasis to hear people out. That I was someone who would be willing to listen. That's kind of like a safe haven, so to speak. Someone that could be trusted, and most importantly too, again, bring people together, being someone who can listen, and honestly, someone who is a person that can set the temperature of the room. I think that's something I've really done my best to be mindful of over the years, where I really do my best not to let the outside kind of energy or the temperature of a room dictate what my temperature is. It's like, are you reading the temperature, or are we setting the temperature of the room? And so for me, and it's not to say like, hey, I want the world to revolve around me. No, but there's something about knowing, hey, you know what, there's a level of confidence. There's a level of just being proud of what I've done so far, and what I am working on. That kind of demeanor, body language is noticeable, it's tangible. And again, I think that's important to, again, walk into room. And it's not to say that to be like, oh, I'm just going to boss people around or tell people what to do. But there's something, I think, that's inviting, welcoming, something that's attractive to people that, again, have that confidence when they walk into the room. And things, again, especially if things are negative and not in a good state of being, being able to walk in and having an effect, or being able to kind of play a part in changing the dynamic for the better, setting the temperature of the room at a better place. I genuinely believe, if those are, a couple, or, if I come to the point where I'm not in this space, or, I'm no longer here on this earth, like those would be probably a couple of core things I would hope that, people would share and say about me.
Absolutely. Okay, I know that we are past the hour, so I do want
I
to
got
do a
time.
quick I want
Oh,
to do a
I know
quick
you may not have time, but I want to be respectful of your time.
I want to do a quick rapid fire with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
You ready? Just
Yeah.
don't think about it. Just say it, okay?
Okay, you're gonna challenge me on this one.
Yep. Let's go. Faith or fear?
Faith.
Community or charts?
Community.
Listening or speaking?
Listening.
Bull market or bear market?
Bear.
X spaces or in-person conversations?
In-person conversations.
Mountains or the beach?
Mountains.
Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee.
Lead from the front or lead from behind the scenes?
Lead from the front. Lead from the front.
Legacy or wealth?
Legacy.
Sunrise workout or late night grind?
Late night grind. Easy.
Yeah, Based was like, I don't think Peanut slept. And I was like, wait, are you keeping tabs on Peanut? He texted me this morning. He was like, I don't think Peanut slept. I was like, wait, Based, what? Keeping tabs. I'm like, where is he? I don't know where he's at.
He's always keeping track of me. He's been such a good friend. I'm fully convinced he is on a mission to single-handedly, as I've been joking with him and saying, he's peanut pilling every, red pill, blue pill. Like, he's going around and I don't know, he's just infecting everyone with me. I guess he likes me for some reason. We've become good buddies, but he's just been honestly such a great person to have in my life. And just being here on this journey connected me with you a little bit more, connected me with Rachel Unchained with Unchained Media. She's an incredible woman in the space too. Connected me with her, and yeah, now me and her are doing a space together, and now I've ended up on this live stream with you somehow. And yeah, I'm so thankful for that, man. So he's connected me to, as much as I love connecting people or bringing people together, he's been on another level in terms of connecting me to other people. So I can't give him enough credit for the people that he's introduced me to.
He is. He's an amazing friend. He's an amazing human. He always checks up on people, and I think, we don't do enough checking up on those that check up on us all the time. And he's very caring. And yeah, he's a huge connector. He's connected me to a lot of people. Stacky too, right? Stacky, have you been around her? She's another person that has connected me to a lot. And just like you, it's like I have a set of group of friends, and I think I can count those that if I call, I need anything, they will come right away. It's like there's a few in this space that I think are amazing people, like Stacky, Gina, Crypto Empress, Base, and I was like, wait, oh my God, I better not, because to me, I only have like a few friends in this space that I can count in one hand. And I'm like, am I leaving them out? I better not, because they're going to freaking beat me. But yeah, no kidding. They won't. It's like where you were talking about the community, and I went through a hard time, especially last year and then this year. And it's the people where I didn't even ask, but that stepped up for me and then helped open those doors. And those are the people that we need to have in our lives and in this space. And I think that's why it's very, you even said it earlier about building the trust and then meeting them in person. And then sometimes, you meet those in person that you connected with, in the space, and then you meet them in person and the vibe's not there.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me before. I'm like, wait.
Yeah. Not in. And maybe, hopefully it hasn't happened a lot for you. I can't say it's happened a lot for me personally, but there's definitely those, there's those situations that happen here and there where you think you kind of get a good read on people online, or even phone calls or whatever it may be. And then, yeah, you're next to them kind of side by side in person, and you're just, I don't like how, it could be little things, how they treat other people, or, just how they carry themselves. It could be little things. And again, it's, funny just how, again, I always try and kind of bring points back to previous parts of the conversation, but it's again, it goes back to kind of what I was saying with, if you can't be trusted with a little, how can you be trusted with a lot? And it's saying, hey, if there's foundational or kind of more micro things that are kind of an issue, what about like the bigger kind of macro things that happen or are being executed? Is there going to be something even of larger magnitude that's going to be like a complete disruptor? Like that's something, again, that I think you have to think about. You have to be aware of if you want to do anything of substance in the space. Because again, you may think things are great, and then all of a sudden, there's a time of elevation, or there's growth, or there's progression happening at quick speeds, or it's maybe not necessarily quick, but it eventually happens, and then it's like, oof, someone's not necessarily there for you like you thought they were at one point. And that's where, again, it's just you gotta kind of have that self inventory. You kind of gotta have that gut check. You gotta have, again, other people that are willing to give you kind of the tough love, as I say. I think that's ever so important. It's not just about having the yes man. It's about having definitely people that uplift you. And when something's going good, they're there to cheer you on and say, hey, like, great job. But to also have those people too that will say, hey, this was good, but there was this kind of area that could be a little bit better. That was, something that, maybe isn't a true reflection of who they know that you are. And it's like, okay, I got to correct that. I got to work on that a little bit more. So yeah, it's having the right mixture of people in your life. And certainly, again, this is an industry, this is a place, as much as everyday life is, or any type of business, but I feel like especially here, again, because we get to interact with people from every single continent, basically every single day of the week. Where else can you have that type of environment with all those different backgrounds and influences? I mean, I don't know. I haven't found a place where we can consistently interact with people the way elsewhere as we do here. So again, you gotta have kind of your I guess your check marks, or there's different things that you have to check the boxes off to, and if they're not, then there's just certain things that you can't compromise, that you can't have leniency on. And it's those times where you get burned, where you realize like, hey, okay, this is actually a standard. This is something that I need to not like slip on. I can't have any leniency on it, even if I think someone is a great person. If there's things that are being crossed, and it's not something that you see as a fit, hey, you gotta take action on that. You can't be justifying people's actions and trying to say, oh, but this is okay and that's okay. I've been there, so that's why I say that, because I've tried to justify for people, and it's burned friends of mine, and it ends up burning me later down the road too, even if I don't think it will. It has. So
one of the things that I've learned in life is that the people treat you the way they feel about you, and then it's your job to either accept it, adjust, or move accordingly to that. But this space will teach you that. Life will teach you that.
Yeah.
Peanut, what is some words? Oh, especially here. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are some words of wisdom that you would love to leave us with?
It's like asking people like, hey, what's the best piece of, or what's the best quote that you've heard in life? For me, and I would say have a very deep understanding of what your why is in the space, because there are going to be so many different things that pull you in different directions. It's kind of like the noise versus signal debate. And it's the things that become very noisy, the things that become very shiny, that patch of grass looks greener over there than here. It's, again, just knowing and understanding, again, what you are meant to do on this earth, not necessarily just specifically for being in this crypto industry. Maybe there's something more specifically, but I believe that, again, there's, for me, like, my why is it can converse, it can go through, several industries in several settings. So again, I just say, hey, know what your why is, because you can get pulled in so many different directions, as you know, and be ever so mindful of the people that you are keeping in closest proximity to, because you may think I've had it a year, 2 years, you have, it seems like, great people in your life, strong, confident, successful people, but there's those situations, there's those certain times that people reveal some of those characteristics or qualities that may kind of tug on your kind of your heartstrings a little bit, and it's tough when you have so much invested into people to break off or to kind of remove yourself. But know your why. Know the people closest to you with as much certainty as possible. And you know what? I mean, have fun. Honestly, as crazy as that may sound, as simple as that may sound, oftentimes, man, people get so, myself included, we can get so serious, or we can have all these emotions kind of, again, if someone catches you at the wrong time or the wrong day, and you want it, like we're asking me, like, hey, is there certain times where maybe I'm just ready to like lash out or attack someone? It's like, yeah, there's been times where I've reacted kind of disproportionately, but it's like, you know what? If there's a focus on those couple of things, plus having fun and enjoying the time here, honestly, you know what? You're not going to have time for the negative things. You're not going to have time for, again, the things that aren't pushing you forward. And again, I'm not saying there has to be this fake positivity or everything is perfect, because no, that's not the case. But you have to be focused on what is going to be constructive, what's going to push you and pull you forward. And yeah, that means you're going to have to address some negative things or some not so good situations. But again, figure out where you can have fun, where you can enjoy yourself, where you get joy, you get fulfillment. You have all those things. I think that you're going to be, a lot of people can head in a direction that, again, just gives them all a life, and that there's overall enjoyment with being in the space, rather than, again, not having any of those bases is covered, and you end up losing a bunch of money, and you get pissed off at people, and then you end up leaving the space. It's like, man, I know that this space isn't for the faint of heart, and it's not made for everyone. I think at necessarily a high level of involvement, sometimes maybe it's just casually investing, and that's that. There's not necessarily any type of community you're connected to. But those that really want to be involved, again, I think that's super important. Know your why, know your people as close as you can, have fun. Again, if you do that, again, I think that over time you'll find the places that you're meant to be. And even if the scenery or the setting that you're in changes, you're always going to be able to find the right place and the right time, because there's going to be people that will be willing to stick their neck out for you. There'll be people that will, I think at one point or another, refer you to someone else, like they have for me. Even as doors have closed for me and certain parts of the journey are no longer a thing, there's always been people that have been willing, like I said, to kind of pass me on, but they'll do whatever they can to put me in a position to succeed going forward, even if it's not with them. And again, that comes from having, like I said, your basis is covered, and just treating people with kindness, respect, basic things. Again, and it's not, none of this is really rocket science. It's not complex, but as I said before too, it's doing the foundational things with excellence over an extended period of time that allow you to scale and do other things in greatness, because again, you can be trusted with little, you can be trusted with much.
Absolutely. Well said, Peanut. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your faith, and your journey with us. This was more than a conversation, about Web3, and it was a conversation about purpose and people. And I really appreciate you being here, and I'm sure the audience and your peanut gallery appreciates it too. So everybody, thank you guys.
I love it.
Yes, you were reading the comments. They're so fun. And we want to thank the chat, people that took the time to come in here and share and hear Peanut's story again. Peanut, thank you so much. And everyone, stay unscripted. Good night, Peanut.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.